Lesson 5, Unit 8. Communicate the changes. All changes need to be communicated to all people who are involved in the project. This is the last step in the adapting phase, which means that you have all the changes approved and you need to communicate these changes. The old plans need to be replaced with the new and improved plans, and you make sure that everybody has access to the new plans and understands the changes that were made. You need to inform the changes on the plans using various communication channels, especially the most critical changes. The first group that needs to receive information on the changes is the project team. You also need to inform the steering committee, the donor, and some internal stakeholders, especially those stakeholders that are providing support to the project. Internal stakeholders include the finance department, procurement, and human resources. They are supporting the project and they need to be aware of all the changes that will affect them. This is needed so they can coordinate their internal resources to provide their support. You also need to inform some external stakeholders. You should inform the project partners, especially if there are changes that will affect their work on the project. It is also important for the suppliers to know the changes, especially changes in the schedule that could affect the delivery of the goods and services. Beneficiaries also need to receive information. If there are changes in activities or the calendar, they need to be aware so that they can make their own arrangements. For example, a change in the start of a training session or location. When you communicate the changes, you need to explain the reasons for the changes. You also need to explain how those changes may affect them, and you need to distribute copies of all the new plans. When you explain why, it is important that you're explaining in detail the reasons behind those changes, and that includes to reflect changes or new conditions in the project environment. Changes made to avoid critical risks to the project. Another reason is changes in assumptions. There are changes to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the project, and also changes to increase the quality of the deliverables. You also need to explain how those changes are going to affect the project team, especially when there are changes in the roles and responsibilities, changing the timing and sequence of activities, access to project resources, and coordination of tasks. Usually, the team requires more time to understand those changes due to the need to reorganize and coordinate their work. Finally, you need to distribute copies of those changes, all the new plans that now have been updated. You need to send them either as a soft or hard copy. You also need to update your project files. If you have electronic or physical files, they need to be updated with the new plans. This is important. You also need to ask people to replace their old plans. Why? Because if they don't do that, they can sometimes get confused and pick up the old plans and they start working on those instructions. And that could be another serious problem. So it's important that you do some follow-up, especially with team and the people who will be using the plans and instructions to do their work, to ensure they are using the latest versions of the plans with the latest approved changes.